What's up? Hello, hello. No, I'm not seeing anything yet. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Hello, hello. This is Paragus Rants. I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, there we go. All right, can you guys hear us? Go ahead and say something, Paragus.
Hey, how's it going? Everybody hear us all right?
I'm not. Oh, good. All right, Mr. White. If anybody, okay, you can hear us. Anybody else here? Both Paragus and me. Technical difficulties, ineptitude on this end.
Everything all right?
Yeah, see, Mr. White, that could be just a joke. That could be just a yeah in response to, so Paragus, yeah.
I know him.
Okay. Oh, he heard that ineptitude. All right, and you're hearing Paragus also?
You guys hear me as well?
Okay, excellent. Just get this thing going then. Yeah, see, Paragus, here's the weird thing, and I'm sure you've experienced this also because you broadcast to Twitch TV. You know that flash panel under your dashboard, or if you're in the main channel, sometimes it fucks up. And I had it on mute. I unmuted it, and I still can't hear you coming through. So sometimes in Twitch, you have to refresh your page if you're not seeing or hearing things. Didn't want to
Right.
do that because I'm quite happy with not hearing anything. It causes reverb and whatnot. So let's go. Let's start to warm up this cast beyond what we already did. I just want to tell you guys now. Paragus, I know I haven't officially introed you yet, but I just don't fucking care. Have you ever eaten Indian food, man?
I'm sure I have at some point.
Okay, I've got to tell you, dude. Last night I had chicken tandoori, and that shit is fucking off the hook. I can't stress it enough. I've always stayed away from Indian food, but you got to try that out. And I just want to let everybody know if you've been sort of reticent to walk into an Indian restaurant, Indian slash Pakistani, you need to. You need to walk up in there, grab some chicken tandoori. You'll never be happier. My mouth was singing. It was singing all through the night into this morning. It's just awesome. So I just want to throw that out there. The samosas are awesome. Sikh lamb kebabs, loving them. All right, that was just sort of my tip of the day. Sometimes I tell about the whiskey I drink. I'm going to throw that out there also. I'm really loving this Knob Creek. If anybody out there likes whiskey, pour some Knob Creek into a glass with 2 ice cubes. Fucking heaven on earth. It's weird. It's not this overpowering whiskey. It's delightful. Try it. All right, with that behind us, food talk, food and beverage. Please, if you're listening to this on the MP3, we want you to go over to mmosmacktalk.com. That's where you can find all of our podcasters, as well as archives of previous casts from me, Ryan, which is the Viper Cast, found at blog.mmosmacktalk.com, as well as all the other casters there. Head on over to there and check out those casts. Also, once again, I want to say thank you to APOC TV from twitch.tv/APOC TV. Follow his channel. This dude is so good. Let me tell you how good he is. I've been having problems with my stream. I've got 50 meg down, 5 meg up pipe, but for some reason, I'm barely squeezing out 1 meg upload. Sometimes it like dances up to the 2.5 range, and he's just been trying to help me troubleshoot the shit out of that. I'm very grateful for his time. He's a good dude. Plus, he has awesome fucking clear stream. You want to check it out. He plays all the modern games, and he's pretty good at them. Check that stream. Also, DF Pawn. He moderates his channel. He drops in here, mods like a motherfucker, in case you guys get out of line. Check him out on YouTube. That's DF Pawn, DFPAWN on YouTube. Also, last Monday, I did a cast with Lord Brando of Hyperion. He runs a brand new blog called brandovblog.com. So head on over there. He has a link to the cast we did, which is on his Twitch channel, also at Brando V Blog. He also has an MP3 there. I think you have to sign up though to be able to grab that. Not sure. Check it out if you want to listen to that. All right, moving on into the cast, giving you guys what you came for. Paragus. So, welcome to our 112th podcast at MMOSmackTalk.com. Tonight, we are joined by Darkfall's most prolific writer and community link between the real world and the AV devs who reside literally atop Mount Olympus in Greece. He is our Hermes. Welcome, Paragus.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, it is awesome to have you. And you know, speaking of gods, you are a god. You are Hermes the god. Your voice is fucking beautiful. It's very clear. And I think after this, I'm just going to have to quit doing MMO Smack Talk and turn that or something else over to you, drive all traffic to you, because you've got the voice of a saint.
It's probably the new headset.
Well, fuck. What is the headset?
I don't know. It's new. That's all you need to know.
Okay, that is about all we need to know. Let's move on into your bio, man. Usually I like to give our listeners a little bit of perspective on who we are listening to. So if you don't mind, please provide us with your age and at least the region in the U.S. that you live in.
I'm 34 years old, just turned 34 a couple days ago, and just outside Philadelphia in Pennsylvania.
Did Sandy affect you perchance?
Not too bad here. We had a lot of like power outages and stuff, but nowhere nearly as bad as it was over in Jersey on the other side of the river.
Now, you are a prolific writer, an interactant, I might have just made that word up, in the MMO and gaming community. Everybody knows pretty much that they can find you, Paragus Rants, over at MMORPG.com. In case those same people didn't know, you also run a Twitch TV channel, channel being Paragus Rants. Is there any other place that your fans can follow you?
Nah, I'm not really into the Twitter thing, so Twitch TV, MMORPG.com, that's pretty much the scope of my empire right now.
Okay. And a beautiful little empire it is, too. I've watched you play some PlanetSide 2, which I hope to talk to you about briefly in a moment. Before we get into that, if you don't mind, give us your MMO history, like kind of where you started off and where you've ended up.
Oh God, that's pretty hefty. I started probably back in EverQuest 1, back when that first launched. Quit that game and went to Asheron's Call. I went back and forth between the two of those games many times. Probably each time one released an expansion, I would jump ship, which was pretty frequent. Dark Age of Camelot did both PvP servers, first Android, and then when that shut down, they merged over to Mordred, so we did a tour of duty on both of those. Anarchy Online, Final Fantasy 11, that's FFXI, Age of Conan, Tyranny server, Warhammer Online, Aeon, played that for a bit. Obviously World of Warcraft, most people have played that. Darkfall, obviously. And we did a little tour in Guild Wars 2, a short one, rather, because our guys weren't too thrilled with it. But I think that's probably off the top of my head. There was probably a couple other ones in there floating around that I missed, but I've been around a while.
That's excellent. That's a pretty diverse set of games that you've played. Aside from Darkfall, and maybe Darkfall isn't it, but aside from Darkfall, which of those MMOs did you really enjoy?
I gotta say, I did like Dark Age of Camelot on the PvP servers because there was just enormous shit talking. I mean, you could just send anyone a hate tell at any time, and we love that shit in my guild. That's just pure comedy gold. we screenshot it. We make like montages and collages of all the rage and shit. So I enjoyed that a lot. But I mean, I've enjoyed various games for various reasons. I thought Final Fantasy 11 was actually probably my favorite purely PvE game. I heard Zypher, I'm going to call him Zypher from the last cast. I don't care what his real name is. But I heard him mention that, and I would agree with him. That's probably my favorite pure PvE game. But I mean, they all, a lot of them were pretty good. Although a lot of the newer ones, frankly, suck. And I think that's probably why most of us play Darkfall now, is because I think most people are probably a little disenchanted with the way the genre has been going the last couple of years. So
Has
I guess
Darkfall
that's about
ruined
it.
MMOs for you, by the way? I mean, it's from people that I've spoken with, and me personally, it absolutely has kind of raised the bar in what I expect from PvP.
Yeah, I mean, from a PvP point of view, I mean, you're not gonna find a game like that anywhere else. It's yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that the other companies that keep pretty much making the same game over and over again. The ones that are based off of like some famous IP really piss me off. Like the Warhammer, the Lord of the Rings. I mean, they just don't translate well, in my opinion. So I just don't really know why people keep making them. They just don't ever really work out. But yeah, I mean, Darkfall is great. It's the open world, the PvP, the politics. I mean, so many people can play Darkfall and have so many different experiences depending on like where you live geographically in the world and like what kind of lifestyle you live. I mean, it's just so much to it that I think that you know, it's it. I think that it's really going to have to be the model going forward for an MMO to have long term sustainability.
Have you tracked on ArcAge much?
Yeah, you know what? I have kept an eye on that, and I like a lot of the things that I've heard about it. I've the graphics and the fact that it's Asian kind of has me a little worried because we've seen so many games that have had that look that have just been like cookie cutter. But I mean, the thing about ArcAge though is that it's 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 probably not going to come here for quite a while, at least from what I understand. I mean, I may be wrong, but it just doesn't seem like it's something that's going to be out in the near future. So I don't really waste a lot of time thinking about it.
One of my hopes for ArcAge is that it will move the masses along the MMO spectrum from the more theme park WoW clones over to the Conquest sandbox style games.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's what most people want. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know people who play a game like Darkfall or an open world game, and they don't like it because they don't know what they're supposed to do. And you have to explain to someone. It's the game's what you make of it. Like some people really need to be guided around by the nose and being told where to go, and you chase the explanation point and all that shit. But yeah, I mean, I think with the lackluster results that we've seen up from a lot of people who played Guild Wars, I think that there's really an opening here where Darkfall's poised to really, if they, it's just good timing. You know what I mean? Because there's like nothing else coming in the near future, and there's a lot of disgust towards the old model, which I think people are kind of getting disgusted with. And yeah, I mean, I think they have that going for them in a big way. And
I
honestly, they had the same thing last time. I remember when Darkfall came out, the original one. I mean, it was kind of like a lull. Like there wasn't anything coming for a while. So yeah, I mean, timing may be their best weapon if the game takes off.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. Originally, I was a little concerned with the release of PlanetSide 2 and Darkfall UW coming out on the same day. Now that you've played quite a bit of PlanetSide 2, do you think that my fears were unwarranted?
Um, well, let me say this. I never really played PlanetSide 1. So I know a lot of the people who don't like PlanetSide 2 were PlanetSide 1 players, and they take issue with the way the character system is. I guess in PlanetSide 1 you could diversify your guy a bit more, and you weren't really pigeonholed into a certain class. But I enjoy PlanetSide 2 for what it is. And honestly, if you would ask me 2 or 3 months ago, I probably would have told you I was looking forward more to PlanetSide than Darkfall. But I think in light of a lot of the new information that's come out about Darkfall, as far as the classes and stuff from the interviews, I'm looking forward to it a lot more than I was before, and I'm very excited about it.
I've got to say about PlanetSide 2, I've watched you stream it a few times, and I plan to actually drop in and watch a little bit more. I'm trying to decide if it's really worth a time investment to jump into it prior to the release of, UW. From what I've seen, I usually play solo a lot, or I try to hook up with the guys at the sandbox.mmosmacktalk.com. Um, and I'm just not sure. Is it even worth playing single player, or should you definitely be playing that game with a group of people? And if with the group, what size would you recommend?
You're really gonna get a lot more out of that game if you play it with people you know. I mean, it's just like I play it by myself. I have no qualms with just logging on, putting some music on, and going around and sniping people in the head. I mean, I enjoy it. But when you have your friends on and the shenanigans start happening and people start like crashing their planes and shit, and it's just so you get so much more out of it if you have a crew of people to play. You don't even need like a lot of people, but just if you have like even three or four other guys, I mean, it enhances the game a lot more, I think.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, as it stands to be relatively true with just about any game you play. I was just wondering, because I've seen you run around. You were playing, I want to say, some sort of an infiltrator when I watched you. And dude, I saw this one part where you're sliding down this hill. You're kind of in a you were in a draw or right near a draw, and you and another infiltrator sort of went live. You became visible at the same time, and you punched him in the face, then just lit him up. That was sweet.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get lucky, but I do play NC, and it's definitely the hardest of the three teams, I think. They're definitely an underdog, be it because they're lacking in organized guilds, or there's a growing theory about their recoil and the cone of fire on their guns is not really up to par with the other teams. So, I mean, if you're going to play the game and you want to be the underdog, I would definitely say NC. But I mean, it's a hard life. So if you make the decision, don't whine about it.
NC on what server?
I play on Waterson, but I understand that NC is kind of an underdog on most of the servers, and the Terrans seem to be the most populous, most organized team. I mean, if you want like the easy mode, I think the Terran's probably the way to go. And I'm sure maybe other people who play the game will flame me who play Terran, but if you play Terran, you're a pussy. Your guns have no recoil, and there's a million of you. So just, I don't want to hear it.
Nice, you pussies. So, all right, dude, let's move on into your role at MMORPG. We kind of want to know what your role in general is there, and I want to know what led you to even want to write about video games for, with, whatever MMORPG in the first place.
Basically, I kind of stumbled onto that site back in its infancy, and I started as a forum troll. I used to troll the forums. I used to get in all the arguments over, all kinds of games. And I think it was probably around the time that Vanguard came out, and like I saw the hype train for that game coming, and as you know, it didn't really turn out to be that well. And I predicted that, and it pissed me off that like nobody else saw what I saw. So they started their blogging section there, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give that a try because they just opened it, and I was thinking maybe if I go like heavy on this thing, like somebody will take notice. And if you look way back on my history, like the first month they started doing that, I did like 10 of them, which I never do that now because I'm not that interesting. But they did pick up on it, and because of that, I kind of elevated my status from just a generic forum troll over there. And they gave me the platform, and then I've pretty much used that platform to my advantage because sometimes they will feature me on the front page, and I can take that and I can go try to contact a developer and be like, hey, if you talk to me, I can get you this publicity, and it's worked well for me, I have to say. Especially in the case of Darkfall, it's because a lot of the staff over there, I mean, a lot of them are nice guys, but they're not like hardcore PvPers. So for a game like Darkfall, it's going to be tough for that game to really get a fair shake on any site where you don't have staff members who are, I mean, really into the shit of butchering other people, the politics, the shit talking. It's not the kind of thing, if you're going to review a game, a lot of their criteria is like, oh, you have to play it for 40 hours or you got to play it for 3 weeks or whatever. And, you play Darkfall, it's just, you may not see like any of that. Like you may not see the politics or the boats or the fun hulks, or I'm sorry, the war hulks. Fuck the fun hulks. But you know what I mean? You got to commit to it. So that's why I just don't think that game's really going to get a fair shake anywhere unless someone's really willing to immerse themselves in it.
So basically, this involvement with MMORPG though is what led to your interaction with the devs, right, from AV.
Yeah, pretty much. I was always a fan of the game, even back when it was vaporware, and like I said, I don't get paid by MMORPG. I think that's kind of a misconception. I think some people think that I'm part of the staff. I'm not part of the staff, but I know the staff. I can contact them whenever I want. And yeah, I've never made a single penny, or I've never like gotten like a free game or even a coffee mug or a Tassos T-shirt from anything I've ever written. I mean, I just do it for the fuck of it, to be honest. And I think if I got paid to do it, then people would doubt like why my motives. Like, oh, he's just saying that because he got paid to do it. I mean, I don't need the money. Like, I'm not like poor in real life. Like, I'm like I do well for myself, so it's not really worth like the $10 or whatever that they would give me to write the columns. And
Okay, but
you
let's
know
be realistic here, dude. I feel like you're being a little disingenuous. A Tassos T-shirt would be fucking awesome.
yeah, especially the new Tassos with the giant arms. That would be pretty sweet.
Oh
You could make
yeah,
a muscle shirt out of it.
yeah, that was a funny little sig that dude made. So okay, so how did you get your first interview with the AV dev team? How did that come about?
Um, I was following the game since the beta, and in the beta, I just kind of like said, hey, the beta for Darkfall was very hard to get into, and a lot of people really wanted to get into it. And I think I kind of reached out to him, and I was like, hey, I'm this guy. I have this blog. I said, I'm really interested in the game. I'd like to write about it a lot. Can I get into the beta? And some time went by, and I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh yeah, like we'll let you into the beta. So I was like, oh shit. So I played the beta for a while, and I took a lot of pictures and stuff, and then I guess near the end of the beta, I got like a private message from him, and he was just like, "Hey, like I'm probably going to be dropping the NDA soon, and if you'd like to write something, it'd be really great if you had something ready right when the NDA came down." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I prepared something, and the instant the NDA went down, my article went up, and it pretty much became like the quintessential Darkfall review from the beta, I would think at the time. I mean, I think that thing got read like 30 or 40,000 times on MMORPG.com. So, and then from there, it's just, I just decided to explore other aspects of the game, and I give the game a fair shake. You know what I mean? I'm invested in it. I'm gonna play it more than an average staff member at a website would. So,
How'd you feel about the Eurogame gamer review?
I was disappointed with that, we'll say, and something we'll talk about later, I think, is I talk to Tassos, or I used to fairly regularly. I still do on occasion, and I remember talking to him the day that happened, and yeah, he was yeah. We'll talk about that later when we get to that sort of stuff.
Okay, don't forget about it because I just added that note up here. Yeah, I particularly, just as being a fan of Darkfall, I took great umbrage with it. I felt it was an extremely unfair shake. And speaking of disingenuous, that was disingenuous, that review. But as you said, we can get into that more later. Regarding MMORPG.com, they definitely did. Well, they definitely they did a podcast or a streamcast recently with Tassos. Oh, do you have any idea why they didn't select you to run that cast? Nothing against the dude who did, but I feel like I would favor a cast with you and Tassos more.
Yeah, and you're not the first person who's mentioned that to me, but like I said, I'm not staff. They kind of do their own thing. Although the guy they picked, Garrett, is he's probably one of their better guys. There's a handful of staff members at MMO that I really like, and he's one of them. There's some people there that I don't really care for, but I'm not going to name them. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he does his interviews with me too. I don't really feel the need to step on their toes. But if they were to ask me to do it, I would do it. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I know how to stream. I use the software every day. I know he had some technical problems. I don't know if that's because he doesn't stream that much, or something happened. I mean, he's a good guy though. But I mean, if people want to do that, then I'll do it. It's
No,
it's,
yeah,
people.
I definitely don't take exception with his interview or the quality with it. I know have been quite a few complaints, especially when they screwed up the first one. But shit happens, so you have to be forgiving, because sooner or later, shit's gonna happen to you. So
Yeah,
being a
it already
douchebag,
has. It happened to me. Because I have the like the keys to the MMO stream channel. Like I can stream on that anytime I want. I just don't usually. And when I first started learning how to stream, I had some terrible casts on there where I had something set wrong in XSplit, and the thing was like choppy as fuck, and it was just garbage, and I hated myself afterwards. But yeah, I mean that stuff happens. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. I just want to put this in. If it's possible for you to pull some strings or whatever, should there be another streamcast with Tassos and MMORPG.com, I, for one, I'd love to see you on it. So I don't know if the guys from
uh
MMORPG are going to listen to this, or if this will, you can go forward and say, hey, what are the odds of me being you get into that cast? I think that'd be a really sweet thing, especially, man, since you've touched base a lot with Tassos. You've had previous communications that we're going to get into. You've had current communications that we'll get into. So you're familiar with the guy. And I think that it would have lent to a more comfortable dynamic. There seemed to be a little bit of stiffness between the two there. And like I said, I am not knocking it by any stretch. But of course, people listening to it, they want to know that the guy talking to Tassos actually has some solid experience playing Darkfall, and then an increased comfort level would go a long distance.
yeah, I mean I don't know. I just don't feel it's my place to try to interject myself like that. I mean, if people feel that way, then they can send messages or post to the staff and say, hey, people can suggest that on my behalf if they want, but I'm not really the kind of guy to say like, ooh, let me do it. Honestly, I had no idea they were even going to do it until like after I was canceled. I was like, oh shit, they're going to do something. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it was like canceled, and I was like, oh well. But yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but another aspect of it too is that like they're also like 6 or 7 hours ahead of where I am because I'm on the East Coast. So I mean, if the time of day that's available for him is not necessarily the time of day that's available for me. I mean, I work like 8:30 to 4:30 every day. Like when he did that, I mean, I was at work. You know what I mean? So from a scheduling point of view, I'm not sure if it's something I could do unless Tassos was able to do it at a different time of the day.
Sometimes you gotta just take one for the team, bro. So if you can get an interview with Tassos, you gotta man the fuck up and do it. You know what I mean?
I'll keep it in mind. But again, if that's something people want to see, then they can start a lobby at MMO to try to lobby for that.
All right, dudes in the stream, make sure you fucking lobby MMORPG.com. If they do conduct another streamcast with Tassos, we want Paragus Rants running that shit. And once again, I have to say, let's not be mean to the other guy. He did an absolutely fine job. But as I noted already, we would be more comfortable with you running that. Somebody who has actually played Darkfall at several different depths and has had a continued interaction with the development team, Tassos specifically. Let's talk about that relationship a little bit. You know, you kind of already mentioned. I was going to ask you, how did your communion with the gods on Mount AV develop? And you already sort of told us how that happened. You also mentioned earlier when we were speaking this evening that you just talked to Tassos the other day, or you communicated with him via some sort of instant messenger. Can you divulge?
Yeah, I actually, it's ironic because I haven't really spoken to him on instant messaging in quite a while. But I just so happened to be on today, and I saw him on, so I said hi, just to see if he would shoot the shit with me, and he did, and he usually does. Honestly, when I say hi to him, we usually talk for a little bit. So yeah, today was actually the first time I've talked to him, in instant messaging in real time in a while. I mean, obviously we communicate for emails, when we're gonna do interviews and stuff, but when we talk in real time, we talk about all kinds of random shit. So it was cool.
What'd you guys discuss? Give us some
Uh,
tidbits.
Today, pretty much, I was congratulating him on obviously the achievement of getting the game on Steam and then having it greenlit in only 2 days, which he was very surprised at. I think that's a lot of that is probably because of the community. I think a lot of people shared, you know, like lobbied for that. They shared in their network that hey, this game's on Steam, give it the thumbs up. People like you who have their show, you promote it. People who have Twitch TV channels. And honestly, that's really the best thing that everybody can do because I mean we know how AV is with their advertising. It's not like as good as a lot of us would like. So I mean, if you have a forum, like I have a blog or you have a Twitch channel or you have a podcast. I mean, if everybody does their part, I mean, we can really get word of mouth out to help them out. But I think the Steam thing is going to be a big deal for them. But yeah, we talked about that a little bit, and I asked him if he thought if the game would actually be on Steam at launch, and he didn't sound so sure. He sounded like there's still a lot of like behind the scenes like paperwork and things you have to sign before that happens, and it didn't really look like it was going to be happening imminently. And I mean, we know the game comes out pretty soon, so I probably wouldn't expect the game on Steam on launch day for purchase. But we also talked about you know, PlanetSide 2, like you said. He said that he had seen it or tried it, and he didn't really care for it as much. He didn't really like PlanetSide 1 either, though, he told me. But he said, you know, when he played it, the game was crashing a lot, so he was asking me if it was still crashing, which it doesn't really. It runs fine for me. We were joking about Guild Wars 2 a little bit because in my Guild Inquisition, Guild Wars 2 fell pretty flat pretty fast. And he says that, you know, he has an old guild that he used to play with that was really big in the Guild Wars 1. And so obviously when Guild Wars 2 came out, they took a look at it. And, you know, him and his prior guild were disappointed in Guild Wars 2. But I mean, it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, the guy's making, you know, a sandbox open world free for all game. You know, I think most people who play Darkfall are disgusted with the old model. So I mean, you can imagine that the developer is, you know, just as disgusted, if not more so.
Did he happen to mention any inspirations for the improved GUI, such as, you know, people have mentioned this before, Dota 2, or did he see something in Guild Wars he liked? Has he ever mentioned why they changed up the GUI and what sort of pushed them in the direction they went?
No, we really didn't talk too much about like Darkfall related stuff, you know, outside of the Steam thing. I mean, I think the user interface change was obvious. I mean, the old user interface looked like it was from a game from like, you know, the late '90s or something. It just didn't make any sense. And you know, when you get someone, you know, you finally convince someone to play this game, which is an achievement in itself, and then they sit down and you're like, okay, like let's do this. And the guy looks at the UI and there's like 27 chat tabs and there's like 8 hotbars, but you got like 50 spells. I mean, it's just a jumbled mess. And I mean, they know that. I mean, it's something had to be done if the game's going to have any kind of, you know, big picture appeal.
You know, one of the worst things about Darkfall to me, and I love the fuck out of that game, even though I'm only a casual player and I don't engage in the metagame or any shit like that. But the thing I hate is their marketing push. There's never been a real North American marketing push. Have you ever touched on this with Tassos? That's something I am just crazy curious about, why they haven't just exploited the fuck out of marketing, because they have all these voices who are willing to do free work for them, whether it be you, me, other people from MMORPG.com, just, I mean, other podcasters, other websites, you know, Zaphix from the Oracle, and there's so many others that I can't remember off the top of my head. People that are willing to donate, if you will, I don't even want to call it that, but dedicate time towards advancing the public knowledge of Darkfall. Yet Darkfall or Adventurin, they've not pushed the knowledge themselves. The awareness is completely lacking. Have you ever touched on this with them? I'm just deadly curious about this.
It's honestly, that's always been a major beef of mine with the game, is just the lack of marketing. It's just like the fact that they didn't take advantage of Steam last time really bothered me, and it's probably one of the points on the forums. I mean, I'm on the forums a lot, but I lurk a lot. I don't post as much. But I mean, one of my most vocal criticisms of the game was the lack of a presence on Steam. Just because Steam is such an amazing tool for a small indie developer. I mean, to not take advantage of that to me just seemed like, my God, like why would you not tap into that? I mean, I know people try to make the case, well, oh, they're gonna get like a certain percentage of your sales or whatever. But I mean, so what? I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, the game, when that game has people, it's unstoppable. You know, that's like, the game needs people, and when the game loses people, then nothing else matters, because the content of Darkfall is people. It's like the bitching and the moaning and the one-upsmanship and the grudges and the politics. And when you take people out of the game, you take content out of the game. So it's, you know, to me, that's always been a big thing, and you're not going to have that without proper marketing. And I'm thrilled that they're taking advantage of it this time. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. I agree with you. I think the marketing always needed to be better. And, you know, but it is what it is, you know. Hopefully with the presence on Steam in the new game, we'll see that change a little bit.
You know, the presence on Steam, as well as their increased output of videos, is a wonderful thing. I think they need to also get busier on Twitter, possibly Facebook as well. I know they have marketing guys who are running this shit, but it seems like they just aren't doing enough. And by the way, I don't mean to put them down, but we have to be constructively critical of these fellows so that they do their job, or they figure out a way to do it better. I mean, I'm not the perfect guy out there, but I the marketing has been absolutely lacking. And just because you get greenlit by Steam, I really hope they don't quit there. I really want to see them become more interactive with their players. Hell, man, fuck Twitter and Facebook and all that. If they even got more interactive on the forums, I think that would be a definite step in the right direction.
That's one thing I've always been baffled by with them. I mean, if you like I talk to these guys. I haven't just talked to Tassos. I've talked to a couple other people who work there, and I still have relationships with them. I still talk to them from time to time about stuff that's not Darkfall related. I mean, they're gamers, man. Like they've played games all the way back to like the games I played when I was a kid, when games were hard as shit. I mean, they are just as hardcore, if not more hardcore, than a lot of the kids in the forums who think they're a tough guy. I mean, these guys, they get it, and it's just like, yeah, I just like they should be on the forums. I agree with you. I don't understand why, I guess, I mean, he knows how the community is. I mean, you see the community on that forum. It's a fucking madhouse on there. Everyone's, like they'll put out a video and they'll be like, look at all this shit we just showed you. And then some guy will be like, oh, well, the fucking bank in the video looks retarded. And like, what about all the other shit? Or they'll put out the picture of the archery and, oh shit, there's no first person. So no matter what they do, some guy is always there to just piss all over it. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a hostile community. They know it, but they like it. I mean, they're glad that their players are passionate about the game. But I would like to see a presence on the forums because a lot of other companies do that. Like I play League of Legends, like Riot's all over their forums. I mean, you play PlanetSide, the devs are on the forums. I mean, it's just the way games are now. You know what I mean? And in a community this small, I mean, we're like all in the same boat here. It's not like there's like 100,000 of us on these forums. Everybody wants this game to succeed. So even if it's not Tassos personally, I mean, I think that they would benefit immensely from just posting stuff on the forums. I mean, like as an example, they have I did that Q&A with them, and basically what I did is I looked at the forums, I tried to figure out things that people were really interested in, and I asked them. And I can't tell you how many times I saw a thread on the forums about the multi-core support. I mean, dude, that question takes like 2 seconds to answer. You know what I mean? Like, is there multi-core support? You just have a guy come out and say, yeah, done. Done deal. Like, nobody should have to go like pull this out of them like you're pulling teeth. I mean, this is not a complicated thing, and it would solve a lot of the rage on the forums. Just yes or no. Bang, done. Close the thread, move on.
Have you ever brought that up with Tassos?
Yeah, I've suggested to him and some others that they should, they should be better on the forums. But I mean, they're going to do it the way they want to do it, and it is a hostile community.
Yeah, but okay, it's a hostile community, but you fucking ignore those douchebags who are being fucking critical for nothing. You can't appease everybody. We know that. No matter what the fuck you do, you can't appease everybody. Just the decision to go FPS. Oh fuck, I want point and click unload. So you can't appease half the people right there. So I think the devs would be well suited to get on there, reply to some constructive criticism, not all of it, because then everybody's going to be attention whores and trolling and shit, and maybe just dispense information with regularity. And they've begun to do that with increased frequency, but it should be more. Just even little tidbits. We want to know that the gods love us. We want to know that they're there. We like when they send out those little tendrils of love to us. There's no reason they can't continue to do that, just even on the smallest scale. So, if you ever have contact with them and this topic comes up, strongly encourage them. That's all I can say. And if they ever listen to this cast, which they may or may not, I hope to God they just realize we just want increase with regularity. That's all we need. Don't respond to the guys that complain about fucking everything. Those are little douchebags who need to be dick slapped. Sometimes the complaints are legitimate, but often they go overboard. And guys that go overboard, fuck them. Even when I post a cast or something, sometimes people get fucking raunchy, and I don't even reply. I don't even really read it. I just gloss over. I think I replied to one once. I'm like, dude, it's a fucking podcast.
Yeah. I've always been proud of myself that as toxic as this community is that I've somehow been fortunate enough to kind of skate through it, with a semi good reputation. But I mean, yeah, I agree with you with the information thing. I mean, I don't want to have to do what I do to get information. I mean, I'm glad I do. I mean, it's good publicity for me, I guess. But I mean, like, I would be just as happy if I didn't have to do that. Honestly, like I agree. If they were on the forums and answering those questions, this would be a lot easier for everybody, I think.
Well, we can only hope moving forward. And, they've been doing it. I'll tell you what, if it's baby steps at first, I'll take it. And I am totally amped up about UW. I mean, what I've seen from the game and understanding how the player population can really impact and work with the changes that are Unholy Wars, I think there is a fucking lot to look forward to. And I'm totally psyched about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just there's so many changes to the game. I think a lot of them are positive. I think some people have overblown some of the things, in a fit of rage, not thinking them through. I think my personal one that kind of strikes me is there's been a lot of rage over after my interview with him, he talked about the fact that there's going to be safe zones in the capital cities, and people were just like throwing shit fits. And like, I don't think that's like that bad of an idea, to be honest. I'm sure some hardcore 14-year-old is going to call me a Care Bear pussy. I mean, and that's fine. But I mean, you have to think about it. Like, how do you have an economy? I mean, we have no auction house, we have no market, and so given that, how are you going to do it? Like, how are you going to have an economy if people can't trade safely? I mean, in the old Darkfall, every time you went to go do a deal with someone, it was like going to a fucking drug deal. It's like, okay, you show up at a place, you have your shit on you. You're worried if some guy's gonna put a sack over your head and beat the shit out of you and take your shit. I mean, you can't have an economy where every transaction is treated like a back alley drug deal. You know what I mean? Like, you need a place where a guy can show up and just give another guy his shit and not worry about, getting butt raped on the spot and then some guy running away with all the shit.
That's a very legitimate perspective, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It definitely was a fear for many in Darkfall. However, one of the changes for Unholy Wars, I'm not sure that I agree with safe zones. I'll live by them. I'm not complaining about it. As the devs have said, it's a new game. Think of it as a new game, just Darkfall-esque. So if we can kind of focus on that and keep that in mind, then we'll be okay. For the hardcoreness that was Darkfall, that was a nice thing. However, because your point of view is definitely legitimate in this, it slowed down trade. It made commerce flow like fucking mud. And for me, I've for the longest time have been calling for commerce expedition tools, if you will. We need to increase the flow of money, gold changing pockets, items circulating through the system, and it just wasn't happening under the old system. So as much as people may love it, the latest changes may not be the optimal changes, but they are changes in the right direction. That is to retain player population for us to kill. In my case, for them to kill me because I get fucking spanked no matter what. I've killed like 4 dudes in Darkfall, and I by the way have loved the brutality, but I get fucking owned. So anybody out there, they can never call me a Care Bear because I have fucking like swam in the gutters of Darkfall and just been. They've run trains on my colon, dude. So
yeah, your prostate's probably been checked many times over.
Yeah, bro. I have been reamed. I'm a bloody mess down there. So anybody that would call me a Care Bear, fuck you, because that's absolutely not true. However, the thing that I want to see, and if it requires, babyifying, pussifying up some of the zones and having save zones, whatever, just to retain a player population and to add some sort of realistic sense of commerce, then you know what? I think I'm for that. At least I'm for experimenting with it. If we look at the United States of America, originally it's supposed to be this kind of light federal system with a bunch of states doing their kind of laboratory experiments in democracy and republicanism and whatnot, right? And, this is what I see UW being. It's just an experiment to see what works. And, UW Part 2 or Darkfall 3, whatever you want to call it, it might tone it down in terms of safe zones, maybe increase shit. But the goal is to find this optimal blend of absolute PvP and conquest, increased sandboxedness, and just find the right tone of freedom that everybody can just live by and enjoy. And so, this is an experiment. It's UW Darkfall Part 2. We're just going to have to play it by ear and see where it goes. And if nobody likes it, then, sooner or later they'll come out with a new game, or EverQuest Next might appease some people. Who knows? But I want to see an increased player pop. That's something we need. And I'm not saying we need to appease every fucking crier out there, but we got to start somewhere. And by them adding that commerce system, good sign. By them
Yeah,
adding safe zones, not so sure, but I'll deal with it.
I don't know. It's just people. A lot of the vets, they're the guys who were like die hard. They clung into the last day. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how you guys did it. The guys who hung in there to the end. I mean, I couldn't do it. I just can't do it. The game needs to have a bigger appeal. I mean, what is the point of having this game being the way those few vets want it? If it's just those few vets playing it. I mean, the game ended on the note that it did for a reason. Like I think I think that as long as the world has a lot of people in it, I think that the game can survive and weather like almost anything. But I mean, as soon as those people start leaving or there's not an appeal, then you're done. I mean, because then the content's gone.
Yeah.
And if that means you can't murder someone in the capital city, I mean, get over it. I mean, how much of your epic PvPing happened in the capital city? You know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I killed more than my fair share of dudes outside the starter zones. I mean, I'm part scumbag too. I mean, I'm a Darkfall player. I mean, don't get me wrong. You're not playing Darkfall unless you're part scumbag. I'll admit it.
True,
I got
dude.
it in me.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. You are part scumbag, even though I don't like to think of myself as scummy. I have definitely found dudes swimming in NPC cities and fucking dunked them, bro.
Yeah, dude. Take him down under the water for a death roll, fucking Crocodile Dundee style. Just take him down
Absolutely.
there and fucking roll his ass around,
Yeah,
steal his
and
underwear. It's the Darkfall way.
it is the Darkfall way, and we're all moving into UW, and obviously all the Darkfall players are going to bring some of that scumminess with them, and it'll be an interesting blend to see the new players blend with, light to heavy scum. But yeah, dude. The main thing is we need to retain a player population. In my interview / discussion with Papa Smurf, one thing he said, or was it Papa Smurf? Maybe it wasn't him. Fuck, it's either him or it was Luck. I can't recall, so somebody can correct me here. But one of those two guys puts on tournaments, 5-on-5, 1-on-1s, whatever.
Right.
And they said that the tournament will always turn out to be the same. And for the sake of this discussion, I'm just going to say it's Papa Smurf, okay? Papa Smurf said that no matter what he does, he will always win the tournament. And then if it's a 5-on-5, his group of 5 will always win the tournament. And the reason that is because we have 100 dudes playing Darkfall NA, and 90 of the people are fucking cash, 10 of the people are hardcore, and of those hardcore, 5 of them definitely dominate the other 5 in that 90 range. And so they always win. But if we had an increased number of people, just a larger amount of diversity, we could throw the fucking Papa Smurf off the bridge and we could have a new king of the mountain. And that's what I'm looking for here.
Oh, that's a big thing I want to see in the new game, is because there's so much, like, how the character development's so like different, and how the fact that everyone's going to be starting fresh. I'm really curious to see if a lot of these forum tough guys remain king of the hill when it's a level playing field on day one. I mean, if you've been locked in your your keep for the last 8 months, running a script, just power juicing your guy on roids, and you come outside, you kill everybody. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, that doesn't make you a good PvPer. It just means you fucking macroed your nuts off. When the shit hits the fan and everyone's on a level playing field, we're gonna be really curious to see which of these guys can really hold up their shit and which guys are really just full of shit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know what's funny is before Darkfall release, back in development, obviously a little redundant, I put up a survey, and that was, what do you think your kill to death ratio will be in Darkfall? And okay, I'm going to take a little license with this, but it was something like the majority of people, as in 50% or something like that, said they would have a kill to death ratio of 6-to-1 or greater. This 50%, mind you. And if you go down to 1-to-1, that's like 3 people, 1-to-2, 1 person. The point is, the majority of people, if we took like the total percentage, basically 80% of people said that they'd have a favorable kill to death ratio.
How is that even possible? I mean, just through the laws of math and statistics, it's not possible.
I know, everybody's such a badass.
Everybody's
Funny.
winning all their fights and nobody's ever dying. So, like, how does a fight win? It just doesn't make any sense. It's just an ego thing. You know what I mean?
I love it. Sometimes it's a good thing in Darkfall. I love the ego, but sometimes I hate it. I'm like, you fucking punk, because there's such douchebags on the forums sometimes, and they're spreading such negativity, especially when it comes to the AV teams. Like these guys are just trying to fucking program some righteous code, and they're just getting beat about by all these little tiny dicks, and who have no real nothing really invested in the game aside of a monthly sub. And fuck, man, it gets obnoxious. But then again, on the flip side, sometimes it is kind of funny, especially when they go at each other. You know?
Oh, I love that shit. I love that shit. I love when like two guys are on the forums trying to figure out who has the bigger dick, and honestly, nobody gives a fuck except those two. And then you're just doing it out in public, and it's like the dumbest fucking thing. But I mean, that's what makes the game great. It's just that fucking spectacle of stupidity. That people just can't fucking admit something. You always got to get the last word, or it's always some excuse why you lost, or the sun was in my eyes, or fucking twisted my ankle. You got beat, dude. Just whatever, man up and just fucking admit it.
I know, I love it, dude. Hey, let's move on to another topic that I'm very curious about. I want to hear all about your early EU DFO story and kind of your guild background. When you basically built your guild, how it developed, who you hung out with, just the entire story of how that unfolds.
All right, well, the first little backstory on our guild, just really quick. I mean, we're the core of our guild. We're real life friends, and like me and the co-leader of my guild, Magnus, we've known each other since middle school. So, I'm 34, he's 34. We're like a week apart. So I mean, the core of our group is, we've been playing forever. And we're not like one of those guilds that just like makes a guild for a game and then after that game is over, we just part ways. Our members stick around for the long haul because, we have fun. We're like a family. And most people come when they like hanging out, so we do whatever. But on NA, or I'm sorry, on EU in the beginning, I mean, it was, I don't know. We were in the Triblands, and I'll be the first to admit, as a guild, we're a non-factor guild. So, if you don't like hearing that perspective, then I guess you could just go fuck off now. But the story is actually interesting because we started in the Triblands, and if you were around on EU1, the Tribland, I mean, nothing fucking good came from the Triblands. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a political map of like shortly after launch during the First World War. I mean, you had Hyperion on the one side of the map, and then down the bottom you have the Coalition, and Dusk had the one continent, and Death had the other one, and Karen had all their guys down there, and the Triblands just like nothing fucking happened. I mean, these dudes could not get their shit together. So, I mean, the game started for me actually probably about 10 days after the actual launch because I could not get a fucking copy of the game. I was one of those assholes who was spamming, the refresh key at the store. And I even tried to have tasks. I was like, please, dude, get me a copy so I can fucking start writing about the game. Like, nah, dude, no such luck. Fucking wait in line. So I did. I got in late. And when I got in, my guild had already secured a hamlet in the Triblands called it's Mathera or something. It's right outside Moonclaw. Man, it's a shit hamlet. I mean, it fucking blew. It was like all it had was a farm. But on the other side of Moonclaw was the Exodus Syndicate. And we had actually fought against them previously in Age of Conan on the Tyranny server, but we knew who each other were, so we were like, all right, we'll work together. So we kind of started our life there, and everything was good for a while. We'd have LOD guys come off the ice place to the north, and they would just like raid, and it was annoying. But they did their thing, and then every now and then the mercs would come through, and they would just trash everything in sight, and it was a pitiful, horrible existence. But the funny thing about the Triblands was the people were so stupid because they were probably the last bastion of people who were like clinging to the original vision of alignment, where it was supposed to be, all races, working together with their separate race, and that was it. And the whole prospect of like working with the other race and doing the ARAC thing. I mean, they were like literally the last motherfuckers to catch on. So we started, this guy like tried to cobble together this shitty alliance called Primal, and we went along with it. And this guy, he put up this elaborate plan to like siege this like shitty hamlet, and he was like, we're gonna put the siege shard in the NPC city, so only a wolf could come in and kill us. And like, as you guys know, I'm sure at some point that became fixed because obviously it's an exploit. It was clever at the time because he was the first guy to think of it. So the guy spent all this time preparing, and then the next day he quit the game. And like, he's like, all right, I quit. Like, you guys can do the siege. It was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, really? So we did it. We sieged the hamlet. We put the guy in one of the Wolf NPC capital cities. We locked his ass up in a tower, and he fucking sat there. And we went about our business. So apparently the guys who we were sieging hired the mercs, and a lot of the mercs were wolves. I know Ozium was a wolf, and a lot of his guys, and they literally came up into the city, and we had one of our guys. It's like one of those little like towers with this 1x1 staircase you got to go up, and we plugged his ass in the door, and he sat there with his shield up, and the mercs pounded this guy with needles for fucking like a half hour because needles was like the big fuck magic at the time, and that's what they did. They all charge up needles at the same time and let it rip on a guy. And I was like hiding on a rooftop across the street, and I saw all the mercs come in. And I mean, dude, the mercs at that, I mean, the mercs were like fucking superheroes at the time because the guy actually shot fire from his fucking hand at one point. I mean, I never saw a guy shoot fire from his fucking hand. I mean, all we saw were fucking mana missiles. That was like the shit. So we ended up losing that. And I remember talking to Tassos the next day, and I was like, dude, we like did a siege and like we put the guy in a capital, like the NPC city, and it was fucking like kind of cheesy. And he's like, yeah, he's like, we know what happened. I mean, he knew, like he fucking knew what happened when I talked to him. So that was like fixed like shortly after that. But I don't know. It was like we just couldn't get our shit together. So one day, like I guess the LOD guys came down and pissed somebody off, and like there was like a revolt in the Tribelands, and like every wolf for like fucking 100 miles like fucking ran to the LOD city to fucking just tear the fucking place apart brick by brick. And like it was probably like the first major gathering on the server in a single place. Like I know that the developers logged on when it happened because they wanted to see what the fuck was going on, and they were like watching it invisible. And that was like the beginning of like maybe like some semblance of hope in the Tribelands. So that Primal Alliance dissolved, and then we heard about the Savage Alliance thing, which apparently we were like the last dudes to find out about it. They had been planning this thing like a long time before launch, and they were going to be all wolves, and that was their shit. So we were like, all right, that sounds cool, I guess. But like while all this was going on, we had heard about a world war going on. I mean, we read the forums, so the forums are like the newspaper of Darkfall. You know what I mean? Like everybody who plays Darkfall should read the forums, even if you don't post on them, because it's funny to see what was going on the other side of the world. We heard about this King Manus guy, and he was like kind of a LARPing guy. And then we heard that the goons were down there, and nobody likes a fucking goon. I mean, it was like, all right, but I mean, we didn't give a shit because it was like they never came into our neck of the woods. So we joined the Savage Alliance, and I'll never forget. It was I think it was a city held by BKB. I think it might have been Darkmoor. It was like on the southern edge of the Tribelands, and we were in this alliance. I shit you not, for like 3 days, and the thing fell apart. We were in this guy's city, and fucking Gluttony came into the team speak, and I'm sure if you fish around in the archives somewhere, there's a recording of it, and he fucking lays down this speech about like, you motherfuckers are gonna bend a knee and like help us fight Manus, or we're gonna fucking come back in 3 hours and tear your asshole out. And the guy was like, well, fuck you, like come and get us, So I'm like, dude, like this guy really gonna come back with a couple hundred guys in like 3 hours? Like, is that even possible? I've never even seen this guy before. I read about him on the forums, but this guy's like, he's like the big shit, like on the other part of the map where we never go. So, guy came back 3 hours later. Yeah, all right. So before that happened, there was a meeting, and they entertained the idea, the Savage Alliance, of maybe bringing in some elves to help because they weren't quite sure if they could handle it. But I mean, these guys, they were still clinging to this, like, everybody's going to be the same race and we're going to live and die by it. And I'll never forget this one bastard in the team speak. It's just like this guy with a real thick southern accent, and he's like, I ain't working with no tree hugger, like, fuck that. And I could not believe this shit, dude. It was like this guy, this like redneck dude was like freaking out about working with an elf. Like it was like someone insulted his fucking mom or something. I was like, holy shit, dude, like, relax. So, I mean, Gluttony came back 3 hours later, like he said, and he took a shit on the city. And I remember hanging off the edge of a cliff on top of Darkmoor when the guys were like walking around looting the bodies, and I like slipped away. And I was like, well, I guess that's the end of that alliance. I mean, it's fucking over. So, I mean, it was just a mess. And we wanted to get out of the Tribelands, and like we had, LOD to the north. We had sovereignty at, I guess, Dagamir at the time to the east. mean, you couldn't get out of the Tribelands without some scumbag from Sovereignty coming out and like picking you off. I mean, it couldn't go south. I mean, it was, they were taking everything to the south. So we were just like, well, shit, what are we supposed to do? So we started to entertain the idea of like, maybe we should like get involved in the war. I mean, maybe there's like some money to be made here. So, in the latter parts of the war, I actually met Gluttony in his Ventrilo. And I gotta say, if you haven't met him, I definitely understand why. I met, like I said, I met him, I met Ozium, and I met Manus to varying degrees. So I understand, the cult of personality around all of these guys. And Gluttony was definitely a funny bastard. I remember when we walked in to sit down with him, he was AFK, and I had to wait 5 minutes because he was, quote, like taking a shit while smoking a cigar, and I had to like wait for him to finish that. And he came in and he said, maybe he'll give us a Hamlet or something. He said he was going to he was putting together the coalition, and after he beat Manus, he was going to take it apart. And, he paid us a lot of money, for us at the time to go help him, on this. There was a big day where there was like 7 sieges at once, and I think the server blew up. But it was like probably like the day where I think Manus lost a lot of his territory. And I remember it was like it was the first time I actually saw Gluttony in game. And I remember like standing at some hamlet in like an Alfar lands, like looking at him, and I was just like standing behind him, like looking at my sword, and I was like, what the hell would happen if I just like shot this fucking dude in the head right now? Like, what kind of shit would happen to me if I did that? I mean, I didn't do it, but I mean, it's the kind of stuff that like passes through your mind when you like read this much about a guy and he's standing there, sitting on the ground, like resting, and you're standing behind him. But so I mean, that was it. I mean, history shows, and I'm sure everyone knows that Gluttony won. And when he took control of everything, he decided he wasn't going to let it go. So while all this was going on, I was doing articles for MMORPG.com. I was trying to get on a boat so I could actually write an article about the boats. And I wanted to find a Warhulk because I kind of heard a rumor there might be one out there. But so that's kind of when I met the Mercs and started hanging out with them. I was told they had a boat. And I was told to meet them at Hintonfell. I guess that's the Chaos City south of Aradoth where they used to hang out. And I had to show up like wearing just a robe and a starter weapon because they didn't want me to do anything funny. Like, what the fuck was I going to do? I'd never seen a man cast a firebolt before, and these guys are making volcanoes coming out of the ground. But I went out there, and they put the boat out. And they rode all the way down to Ruby Yacht, and they started shelling, I think it was Bad Boys for Life. And I took all these pictures of it, and I remember when I wrote the article on the boat, I commented about how the range of the cannons was like nothing that they could do against it. And then like a couple of days later, the cannons got nerfed on the boats, and they were like fucking pissed. I felt really bad about that. But I mean, that's what happened. So as the Second World War started, we decided that our Hamlet was becoming a liability because A, it was a piece of shit. And B, we kind of wanted to get out of the Tribelands because it was still a piece, nothing was going on there. So we sold our Hamlet for about like, I don't know, like 30 or 40,000 gold, which was a lot for us at the time. And I remember our last day in the Tribelands, we went fucking like totally ape shit and just started killing all the other wolves and stuff. And they were like freaking out, like, you betrayed us, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you guys are like, you need a reality check. Like the rest of the world doesn't care about like the racial alignment system. Like you're like the only ones left. It's like there's like guy across the world who's like steamrolling cities, and you're worried about like working with a tree hugging elf. You guys need a fucking reality check, dude. So I mean, that's how my time on EU started to play out. I ended up living with the Mercs in Aradoth, and I started to track down the first Warhulk, and that was actually a funny story because I don't know how many people know this, but the first Warhulks that showed up in Darkfall were not actually crafted by anyone. It was actually the result of a server admin at Adventurine who had logged into the server, had the Warhulks on his person, forgot to turn on his immunity, and was killed and looted. He had one Warhulk of each type, and I think there's 4 of them, they were like separated. And the Mercs had one, and somebody drove it. It's like I think it was like a lightning Warhulk, and one of the Mercs drove it over a puddle of water, and it fucking exploded like instantly and killed everybody. And they started this rumor about how Warhulks are overpowered on water because like nobody fucking knew. You know what I mean? They were trying to get like whoever had the other ones to like drive them into the water to try it out, knowing that they would fucking explode all over the place. But yeah, it took me a long time to track that down. I had to like go through like King Manus's court, and I had to like do the fucking audience. You got to talk to the herald and the whole thing, and I ended up tracking one of the warhawks to some like French guild that was living down in Elflands, and they were too scared to use it because they didn't want it. I mean, they're like I was like, can you show it to me? And they're like, we're like scared to whip it out, dude. We like bring it out and we die or server crashes, it's fucking over. So eventually, I saw it. Ozium had it, and it's the rest I guess is history from there. We hung out there for a while. The Mercs were very good to us. I still talk to them quite a bit, and then Ozium had to take apart the coalition, and that all played out on the forums as Merc stuff always does. And then yeah, I mean, then at the end of the day, it came down to I guess Death Alliance with the Sinister and Bone Dancer. They came off the continent, off in the corner, and came down and got involved. And I mean, I guess that's about it. I mean, it's a long story, but it's I am probably one of the only people who's actually met and spoken with Manus, Gluttony, and Ozium, and have been on favorable terms with all three.
So which one is your favorite?
Uh, well, I probably spent the most time with Ozium, so I kind of liked him because I used to be in his vent when they would do raids, and I mean, you might have heard stories about how he was kind of like a tyrant and like a dictator, and it's like almost cult like. And I mean, a lot of it is true. I mean, I've heard him. I've been with them on their good days when they've slaughtered like hundreds of people, and I've been with them on the bad days where somebody dropped the ball, and I mean, you could hear a fucking pin drop in that vent when he went around and like reprimanded everyone for all the stupid things they did. But I mean, I don't know much about whatever exploits or whatever shit happened with them. I mean, I never saw it. Honestly, it's not like I was like an Aradoth and I walked in a room and it was a fucking printing press duping money or anything. Like I never saw anything like that. But that was probably before we got there. But as a leader, I respected his leadership and the way he got things done. You know what I mean? I mean, when in a PvP situation, his guys were top notch. But I mean, they did have a huge advantage though too. I mean, there's no denying it.
So okay, so yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that the Mercs have brought in great organization into Darkfall. When they PvP, it's very structured. They all know what they're going to do, and they're all very responsive to his commands. Did you experience any of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, their raiding parties were top notch. I mean, when he said something, you did it because if you didn't do it, you were scared shitless of what would happen to you. I mean, he would kick people out. He would ban them. He would like yell at them. I one time, and in the later days, I guess against Death, there was a fight outside Aradoth, and we were like waiting for an attack, and somebody was joking around in the tower and like fire bolted somebody else in the tower just as a joke. And like I swear to God, he went into that tower and murdered like the guy who did it like right in front of everybody, like stripped him down to his underwear, and like that was fucking the end of it. Like you don't fucking even think about doing anything.
Was he also kicked from the guild, or was it just shaming?
I think it was a shaming. I don't know if he was kicked from the guild, but I mean, it wasn't uncommon. I mean, they had the Rainbow Ninjas, which was kind of like their application guild. Like you had to be in the Rainbow Ninjas for a while. So if you were a Rainbow Ninja and you did that, your ass was gone. But I mean, if you were into the Mercs, he might have cut you a little bit of a break. But I mean, he ruled with an iron fist, and it was effective. It really was.
Of the three, who do you find to be the most colorful?
Uh, Gluttony was probably the most colorful. Although I do like Manus. I mean, the whole presentation of the King Manus on the forums thing. And I interviewed him because back in the day I did an interview of all the major alliance leaders. Something I'd like to do again, actually, as an aside. I think once the dust settles and we start to see people, gravitating towards factions, I'd like to go around and, find the big alliance people and, just like I did last time, maybe ask everybody the same questions about what their take is on things. And then maybe we can have Tassos respond to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Manus and Gluttony were definitely two sides of a coin. I just love when Manus comes on the forums and you have to like there's like a guy that like announces him and you have to like get through that first. Like okay, like this guy is he's gonna like roll out the red carpet and you have to like get through that. And then Manus comes out and he's like totally in character. I mean, that shit is great, man. That is just fucking pure gold.
Yeah, I love it. I love that whole thing. Even though I'd never do it myself, like you
Oh
said,
God,
it's
no!
pure
I would
gold.
never do that. But it's fun as hell to watch. It's like holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Because these are real life dudes sitting at their computer terminals, like saying, "Your Grace, His Eminence, the Lord of all Eastern Aegon," whatnot, presenting
Yeah.
him. That's awesome shit, dude. Hey, okay, I got a question for you, and this is something that Zafix brought up last cast, and he didn't quite phrase it in these terms. But bottom line, this is exactly what he is saying. So Zafix, I see you in the channel there. Don't fucking hide. Correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I'm not. I think I've got this pretty well nailed down here. He was alluding to essentially a shadow government in Darkfall. Okay, and that is like a Darkfall Illuminati, which is a power structure by all the most powerful guilds, which there's only a small handful. And if they deem it so, a new guild, for example, in UW, if they try to rise to power and it displeases this Darkfall Illuminati, they will be crushed and blacklisted, essentially unable to play the game. Do you believe in the existence of that structure and its effectiveness?
I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Don't bullshit me, bro. Bring it.
I'm just fucking with you. I honestly, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of shit that goes on behind the scenes in Darkfall. I mean, guys like Zaffa are, there's different kinds of players in Darkfall. Let me put it this way: there's guys who are titans on the battlefield, and then there are guys who politic and wheel and deal and scheme and spy. It's like Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? Not everybody is, Jamie Lannister. There's some Tyrians running around. I mean, there's some guys who all they do is run around and talk to people and wheel and deal and try to set people up and steal banks and shit like that. And it is what it is. I don't know if there's a global crime syndicate that Zaff is saying, but I mean, there's definitely an underbelly to Darkfall, and I can tell you at this point that I mean, there's I mean, as we sit here and we're talking about the game, it's going to come out in 8 days or whatever. I mean, there are already people putting spies in the guilds. There's already people because I mean, everybody knows everyone's recruiting. You know what I mean? People are trying to get their shit together. So there's actually people right now like planting spies in other people's guilds to just getting ready. I mean, like you think the game hasn't come out yet, but the game already started. Only the dumb ones haven't realized it yet.
Do you think this precludes the possibility for a new guild, let's say a 180-man guild from World of Warcraft, strong organization, they want to come in and they want to take a few holdings in Darkfall? Is that a possibility?
I would say for the new version, if that was going to happen, you would better be there at launch. I think that there's going to be a serious land grab at launch, and due to the nature of how we're not going to have all the siege equipment and all that stuff, I think that once the initial dust cloud settles at launch, I mean, how are you going to take something from someone? I mean, you're going to have to like get someone crafting up to the siege hammer level. They're going to have to start mass producing siege hammers. You're going to have to get the money. I mean, it's if you don't, I think if you don't really get yourself a nice piece of property at the outset of this thing, then prying it off of someone might be pretty difficult later, especially depending on how entangling the alliances become. You know what I mean?
One thing that Zafix said in the last cast, and I intended to ask him about this in terms of specific guilds, or names of guild leaders, and I failed. But he had said something that and I'm going to paraphrase here, he believes that a lot of guilds that met success in Darkfall after a lot of the power guilds left, they're sort of living in a fantasy land. They're under the illusion that they will actually be players when the game releases. The first guild I thought about was NME. And by the way, this is not an insult to NME, but they're a guild that and correct me if I'm wrong, please. They're a guild that sort of came to power after all the dust settled, after the major alliances, and after all this stuff. And Zafix, you're on the channel here. Do you think that guilds like NME, who I think they had pretty good organization and guild leadership, but I have this feeling they're not part of this Darkfall Illuminati, and of course I could be grossly wrong here. And I do have a interview coming up with Bear Grimm Tuesday, the night before launch. So hopefully we'll learn more about that then. But do you think that guilds like that rose to power after all these bigger known powers left, do you think they'll actually factor into any real politics that happens with UW?
Um, I don't know. I don't want to disrespect guilds that stuck around, to the bitter end. If you wrote it out to the end, I mean that's commendable. I mean I couldn't do it, but I mean if just because you were the king of the hill on what was left of the ant pile, I mean that's not going to mean shit when the real game comes out. I mean it's going to be a super high population at the beginning. Everyone's going to be on an even playing field. So I mean all of that will amount to nothing. Honestly, I mean it's those first 2 or 3 days where everyone tries to grab up all the land. I mean, that's really going to determine, who has power and who doesn't. You know what I mean? If you cannot get a piece of property, at launch, and you're a major guild, I mean, you're really going to have a hard time trying to prove that you're a big deal. Well, I'm sorry, knowing Forumfall, they didn't want that property anyway, but it's just I'm not disrespecting those guilds, but I think it's a new game. It's a fresh start. The population is going to be substantially higher. The competition is going to be substantially higher, and you can't sit on your ass and think that because you were a big deal at the end of the last game that you're going to be a big deal at the start of this one.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so let's move on into UW. Unless you had anything Darkfall 1 related that you want to discuss further, let's move on into UW. So is there anything else you want to cover?
Nah, that's fine. We can move on.
Okay. First off, I want to know, are there any guild names that you're expecting to see movement from day one launch? For example, let's just take Vampus, since they've been on the cast recently. Do you
Right.
expect a lot of movement out of those guys, taking land, kicking ass, whatever, or Hyperion? What are you looking forward to? And when I say looking forward to, realistically, don't just grab your cock and make something up and splash all over the screen here. What do you think realistically is going to happen day one? And of those players, what do you think or what do you hope will happen?
No, I'm not going to jizz on your screen, Ryan. But I mean, I always tell it how it is. How I see it. And I mean, yeah, I think that there's certain guilds that historically have always done well. Like I said, in the beginning of this cast, we talked about all the MMOs I've played. A lot of the guilds that are in Darkfall today, I've played with these guys and against them in games going all the way back to 10 years ago. So, like, Sinister is a good example. Like, I would definitely think that Sinister will probably be an aggressive, I think that they're going to get situated probably pretty well and become, something that people should worry about. Sun, if you're on the European server, I've played with and against those guys in prior games. I mean, they're top notch. They're probably gonna on the European server. I would probably keep an eye on them. Manus. See, the thing about Manus is I don't really know how because I know the last time when he did the Hyperion thing, he spent like months putting that together, I think. And I don't really know how much he's been putting into it this time. So it's hard to say, but I mean, you can't deny the fact that he's the guy that practically tore the world in half in the last game. So I mean, I really hope that he becomes a factor in the other one because the game really needs people like that. I like to see people who are, not just gonna sit in their city, macro to death, or just oh, I'm just gonna sit here and if someone wants to murk me out, that's fine. I mean, the game needs aggressive players who want to conquer. So I think Manus, I would like to see Manus become a factor. I hope he does. As far as Vamp and Nemesis, I mean, they know what they're doing. I have no doubt that they're going to probably be some sort of a factor. I mean, if you didn't play on the NA server, I mean, there's no denying that they were the power player on NA for the majority of the NA run. I think. Trying to think of anybody else.
What about Orc and Beans? What do you think their showing will be like?
Orc and Beans. I'm not. I can't say I'm too up on my Orc and Beans. No disrespect to the fine gentlemen in Orc and Beans, but I'm not too familiar with them. But I'm probably not the guy to ask. I'm not the historian.
All right, that's That's kind of a joke. That's just a loose guild that
Yeah,
Coolit and I are rolling into UW with. We actually will be, if anything, a guild that you ally just to go skirmish and whatnot. As the sandbox says in chat, they are the clan to watch, and truly, they probably are. If we just get down to brass tacks here, um, some fucking avatar in the chat. All right, dude.
yeah.
So, are you looking forward to any of particular rivalries, though?
Um, like I said, I hope there are rivalries. I really do. I just don't want to see a stagnant political scene. I want to see people who want to like conquer. Honestly, if everyone just gets their land and is just content sitting in it, and then like murking themselves out whenever like a convenient squabble becomes up between someone else, that's going to be boring. And we saw a lot of that on NA, and you know, I don't know. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. If everybody plays the merc, then like nothing happens. Like somebody needs to make something happen. So I really hope that people are aggressive, and are willing to take people out of their homes. And on the flip side, I would hope that people who are on the losing end of that don't quit when things don't go their way. I mean, that's part of this game, is that it's an evolving experience. You can't be like, oh, I lost my house, I'm going to quit the game. I mean, that's the experience. I mean, sometimes you gotta, like, you lost your house, you gotta go live in the slums for a while. I mean, it's a different game now, but you make the most of it. You claw your way back up. You suck dong in the alleys to make allies or whatever you do. I mean, I just don't want people to quit when they lose, but I want people to be aggressive and proactive about causing drama, because it's a player-driven game. I mean, you need drama.
All right, let's go for some very specific predictions here. I want you, if you're able to, and if you can't, that's okay. Who do you think will run each subcontinent? Yasam, Cairn, Ruby, Niflheim, and then who do you think will kind of run the center of the map? And I mean initially, not long term, but let's just say within the first 6 months.
I don't know. That's kind of a hard question for me to answer, because I'm not really sure what everyone's plan is, to be honest. Like, I haven't heard a lot of, like, I don't know. I mean, guilds are not really broadcasting, like, big guilds that are big power players. They're not like broadcasting like where they're going to go. I mean, a couple people are. Like, I know, I think Black Shields has announced that they're probably, going to try to be on the mainland. I would expect them to be probably a significant factor in pretty much anything that happens. And they just have some like very skilled players. But yeah, I haven't really heard anybody talk about Rubiat and stuff like that, because I think a lot of people base their perceptions of those continents based on the Darkfall 1 model, where a lot of them were kind of lackluster. You know what I mean? Where, like, I mean, frankly, some of them were just shitholes. I mean, it was like, okay, like, there's like maybe some good mob spawns here, but the place is a depressing wasteland, so nobody really gave a shit. So, I hope that, on AV's end, that they really gave the other subcontinents the attention that they needed, because I mean, I don't know. I suspect that maybe Yasam might be a hotbed, because people are basing their opinions upon Darkfall 1. Because Yasam was probably the best made of the 4 subcontinents. It was interesting. It had good spawns. It had a dragon. But yeah, I don't know. I hope AV makes it interesting enough that people want to take the other places. So,
What's your guild gonna do?
we've had our officer meetings, and we have a plan. I mean, there's things we want to do. There's people that we want to work with, or we could see ourselves working with. I mean, a lot of people talk to me, so I have friends in a lot of different places. I'm not like a sneaky Zappa, Illuminati guy, but I mean, I'm a sociable guy in the community, so a lot of people talk to me. But I mean, I don't want to I don't think any guild that's really serious is gonna lay out like, oh, I'm gonna do this, or I want to do this. I mean, I guess the most specific thing I could tell you is that I think we would like to have a piece of real estate, be it a hamlet or a town, if possible. I mean, I hope the hamlets are a little bit more defendable in this game than they were in the last game, because, they were our hamlet in the first game was just like, they had walls, but it was like walls on 3 sides, and a guy could just walk in the backside and shit all over you. So, we'll have to see. But I mean, I think we'd like to have a piece of real estate somewhere, but I think a lot of guilds would. But I mean, I'm not gonna say like, who I think I'm gonna be living with or anything, because, like I said, at this stage in the game, I mean, there are people already putting spies in people's guilds, and I don't want to say anything that's gonna even want to tempt someone to spy on my boring ass. It's just, so we'll just leave it there.
All right, how about your thoughts in general regarding UW? There's been a lot of videos released, Thankfully, we don't have Primalists in at launch. We have that wonderful MMORPG.com interview recently done. There's the whole Calvary possibility in the future. What are your thoughts on all the information that's been released? I mean, pick a few topics and run with it.
I have to say I'm kind of with the community on the primalist thing. Like I really want to see that. I think that that's because there wasn't really like being like a supportee or like a priest or kind of a thing. That really wasn't like a thing that like many people did just by the nature of the game in the old one. You know what I mean? The fact that that's like its own thing now and like you can like delve into that, I think is really exciting because it gives an opportunity for some people who might not be really good front row fighters to be like, okay, I can support these guys and contribute to the fight. So I think that that's probably the thing that I'm most excited to see. Um, the elemental schools of magic. Obviously, I'd like to see the other. Well, obviously we haven't seen water and earth. I don't know if there's any others besides that, but I hope that they continue to make them all interesting enough so that people don't all gravitate towards the same school, like we saw in the first game, where everyone had to have like fire with the knock up on the fireball and the wall of force shit. So as far as the cavalry thing goes, that's kind of interesting. I didn't really see that coming, to be honest. Like I thought that's kind of a clever idea. Is it going to be viable? I don't know. I mean, I guess you have to be on your mount. So I mean, what happens if you lose your mount? Are you just are you gimped without your mount? So I mean, these are things that we're just going to have to wait and see. And but I mean, it's interesting though. I mean, they're coming up with some decent ideas, and I guess by the nature of the game, they're leaving the door open that down the road they could just keep making up new roles and stuff and keep patching them into the game. So maybe they'll do that.
What are your thoughts on the Air Elementalist?
I liked it. I thought it was kind of cool. I noticed that a lot of the classes, just in general, seem to have like a lot of mobility. Like we've seen, like the one warrior, he's got like a dash, and the other guy can like back leap, and the other guy can like jump over cliffs and shit. So I think that dynamic is like very interesting. I'm like just the way battles are fought, like how movement is going to be. Not just guys like figurating and sticky backing and stuff like that. I mean, these people like dashing around and flying around. So I'm kind of interested to see how that mechanic plays out. The air guy was kind of cool. I liked it. Although there was like I noticed at the end of the video, he looks like he jumped off a cliff and he kind of like feather falled. And I don't know if that was like an air spell or if that's like some other spell. But I'm fairly certain that character in that video fell at a pretty slow speed as a result of some magic.
Well, he did. He actually cast Whirlwind or Tornado to buffet the tree chopper off the cliff. And the consequence of that spell is that it lets you fall slowly. I'm pretty sure I saw that in the video. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it looked that
people are.
way, but the guy didn't actually say that in the video, and I thought that if that was a side effect of that spell, that maybe he would have been inclined to mention it. But
I thought he did.
yeah, I get,
No, no, no. People, okay, fuckers are saying slow fall. Watch that video again. He does not cast slow fall. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I only looked at it like twice, and listen to what he says. Just before the air elementalist tosses that dude off the cliff, he says something to the effect of, "When you cast tornado, it'll buffet those around you and encase the caster in, fucking lofty wind." I don't know, something like that.
you may be right. I didn't pick up on it, but I don't like super analyze the videos like a lot of the people in the community do. I mean, we have guys like zooming into the pixel looking for chaos chests and looking at it in infrared trying to find hidden messages and shit. I mean, I watch the videos once or twice and then I just kind of move on. So I mean, it's possible.
All right, I got to call these fuckers out in chat. Okay, first of all, Wretch. He does absolutely cast something before he hits the water. However, observe his velocity before he casts that spell. Kino Lair. I'm not smoking nice herb, but I am definitely drinking nice whiskey. However, I promise you, check it out again. Listen to the words of the narrator just before he casts Tornado. And tell me if you don't agree with me. Okay, I mean, it's funny. A lot of you guys are saying slow fall, but he definitely did not cast that before buffeting that guy. Check it. I'm going to check it again. And fucking, if I'm right, I'm going to live it up in the forums. If I'm wrong, I'm fucking hiding. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
What else, dude? What else from you, Dub? I mean, god damn it, dude. I am absolutely on fire and excited about this game. However, the fact is I don't want to, overtalk points that I've already discussed in previous casts unless it's something that you bring up and you want to touch on. So is there anything else with you, Dub, in terms of specific features that you've noticed or you think might be sliding under the radar that are noteworthy?
Um. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you've talked about in a lot of your previous casts, but like I said, the safe zone thing. I think that I would just urge people to consider the economic value to build an economy with the fact that you have safe zones. Salvaging, that's interesting. Salvaging was mentioned a long time ago. I mean, I don't really know if they've directly addressed that. Um, I mean, I'm not like, I don't really have any feelings on it one way or the other. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how the new class system, or I'm sorry, role system plays out. And I really want to see if one of the big pet peeves of mine is the macroing thing. I was never really a macroer, which is probably why I got slapped around in PvP. And I just really hope for their sake that a person can play the game and become viable without having to go down that road. Because I mean, if people see that shit, I mean, I know a lot of